Captain Veltar stared at the dead bodies floating in the medical bay of his ship. 3 more crew members had died in the last hour, and he knew more would follow soon. The plague that had started on the mining world of Korath Prime was now killing everyone aboard the Harmony's Edge. His people had traveled the stars for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like the sickness. The tall alien captain touched his chest, where his own symptoms were starting to show. Small dark spots appeared on his translucent skin, and his breathing was getting harder. He walked slowly through the corridors of his science vessel, watching his crew suffer. Some lay in their beds shaking with fever, while others could barely stand. The ship's medical computers had tried everything, but nothing worked. Against this ancient enemy. Dr. Kesani looked up from her research station when Veltar entered the main laboratory. Her large dark eyes showed the same fear that filled everyone. On the ship, she had been working for days without sleep, trying to find a cure, but the plague was unlike anything in their medical databases. It attacked the immune system in ways that made no sense to their advanced science. "Captain, I have an idea, but it sounds crazy," Kesani said in their musical language. Her voice was weak, and she coughed before continuing. "The plague targets advanced immune systems like ours. It turns our own defenses against us. But what if we found beings with primitive immune systems that could resist it?" Veltar moved closer to her workstation, where holographic displays showed the plague's structure. The bioweapon was clearly made by the ancient destroyer race that had vanished millions of years ago. These beings had created weapons designed to kill any advanced species that might challenge them. The plague had been sleeping in the ruins on Korath Prime until the mining operation accidentally woke it up. Where would we find such primitive beings? Veltar asked, though he already suspected what his chief scientist was thinking. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on peaceful worlds with stable climates. Their immune systems were designed for their safe environments. Only the legendary Deathworlds produced beings tough enough to survive anything. Kesani brought up a star map showing the local sector. Red markers indicated the 17 star systems where the plague had already spread. The galactic trade routes were carrying death from world to world, and their quarantine efforts had failed completely. "We need to send a signal to every inhabited system within 50 light years. Someone out there might have evolved on a world hostile enough to create natural resistance." The captain knew it was their only hope. The Galactic Council had already declared their sector a dead zone. No help was coming from the advanced civilizations because they were all just as vulnerable to the plague. The Zephyrians were known for their peaceful nature and advanced science, but they had never needed to fight for survival like some species had. "Send the signal," Veltar ordered. "Tell them we need immune systems that can handle biological warfare. Tell them we are dying." The message went out into space, carrying the desperate hope of a dying species. It traveled faster than light through the hyperspace communication network, reaching dozens of worlds. Most species that received it simply marked the sector as contaminated and increased their quarantine measures. The plague was too dangerous for anyone to risk contact with infected. Areas. Jake Morrison was working the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Colorado when the alien signal reached Earth. The young technician had been tracking satellites and space debris for 3 years, but he had never seen anything like this transmission. The signal was clearly artificial, and it came from outside the solar system. His hands shook as he ran the data through the analysis computers. Signal was complex and layered with mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. Jake immediately called his supervisor, and within an hour the facility was full of people. Scientists and military officers crowded around his workstation, studying the first proof that humans were not alone in the universe. The signal repeated every few minutes, as if the sender was desperate for someone to hear it. General Patricia Hayes arrived at the facility before dawn. The tough military commander had spent her career preparing for threats to Earth, but she had never expected first contact to happen during her watch. She studied the technical data while linguist Dr. Amy Foster worked on decoding the message itself. The signal contained images and sound patterns that suggested a highly advanced civilization. "It's a distress call," Dr. Foster announced after hours of analysis. The young professor had spent her career studying ancient languages, but this was far beyond anything human. They're broadcasting to every world in range. They need help with some kind of disease that's killing their people. The decoded message painted a terrifying picture. An alien plague had escaped from ancient ruins and was spreading through space. The aliens' advanced medical technology was useless against it. They were specifically asking for beings with primitive immune systems that might have natural resistance to biological weapons. The message included data about the plague's structure and how it attacked immune responses. General Hayes contacted the Pentagon immediately. Within hours, every major government on Earth knew about the alien distress call. The president held emergency meetings with the Joint Chiefs, while scientists around the world studied the technical data. Everyone realized this was the most important moment in human history. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was commanding the UES Phoenix in Earth orbit when she received her new orders. The veteran Space Force officer had trained for exploration missions, but she had never expected to lead humanity's first contact with aliens. Her ship was Earth's most advanced warship, equipped with the latest technology and a crew of specialists. The Phoenix crew included combat medic Sam Turner, who had served in conflicts around the world before joining the space program. Engineer Carlos Martinez had designed some of the ship's key systems himself. Dr. Kevin Walsh was Earth's leading expert on biology and disease. They were all volunteers for a mission that might be humanity's greatest adventure or its greatest disaster. Rodriguez studied the alien data in her ready room as the Phoenix prepared for departure. The plague described in the message was unlike anything in Earth's medical databases. It specifically targeted advanced immune systems by turning them against their hosts. The aliens seemed to think that primitive immune systems might resist it naturally. Earth had always been classified as hostile by the galactic community, according to the alien message. Humans had evolved in conditions that most species would consider lethal. The aliens called worlds like Earth Deathworlds because they produced beings adapted to extreme survival. Most galactic civilizations had developed on peaceful planets with stable environments. The Phoenix left Earth's orbit 3 days after the first signal was received. Rodriguez and her crew knew they were flying into unknown danger, but they also knew they might be the aliens' only hope. The journey would take 3 weeks through hyperspace to reach the coordinates in the distress signal. During that time, Earth scientists continued studying the plague data and preparing for contact. The alien signal kept broadcasting as the Phoenix traveled through space. Each repetition carried the same desperate message asking for help from immune systems forged by hostile worlds. Captain Veltar and his dying crew did not know that their signal had reached the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Humans were about to show the universe what Deathworld evolution really meant. The U's Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace near the alien vessel, and Captain Rodriguez felt her breath catch in her throat. The ship, called Harmony's Edge, was 3 times larger than her own vessel, and built with curves and flowing lines that looked more like art than engineering. Strange lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that seemed almost alive. This was humanity's first look at technology from another world. "Scanning the vessel now, Captain," reported Lieutenant Barnes from the sensor station. "I'm reading massive internal damage and multiple hull breaches. Life support is failing in several sections. There are still life signs aboard, but they're getting weaker." Rodriguez opened a communication channel using the frequency patterns from the original distress signal. Her linguist, Dr. Amy Foster, had prepared a response message using the mathematical codes the aliens had included. The message was simple and direct, stating that humans had received their call for help and were offering assistance. The response came immediately in heavily accented English that the alien computers had learned from Earth's radio broadcasts. Human vessel, we are grateful for your arrival. I am Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian science ship, Harmony's Edge. We are dying from an ancient plague and desperately need your help. The voice sounded weak and tired, but also relieved. Rodriguez could hear the strain of someone who had been fighting a losing battle for too long. She agreed to dock with the alien ship using their airlocks, but insisted on full environmental protection for both crews. Neither species knew what diseases the other might carry. The docking procedure took 2 hours as both ships' computers worked together to match their different technologies. Rodriguez selected a small team for the first meeting, including Dr. Foster for communication, Sam Turner for medical support, and 2 security officers. They wore full environmental suits with multiple layers of protection and independent air supplies. The alien airlock was twice the size of human designs. Everything was built for beings much taller than humans. The surfaces were smooth and organic, looking as if grown rather than built. Strange symbols glowed softly along the walls, providing light that seemed to shift colors as the humans watched. The technology was clearly far beyond anything Earth had developed. Captain Veltar was waiting in the docking bay with 2 of his officers, and Rodriguez was shocked by what she saw. The aliens were nearly 8 feet tall, with thin, graceful bodies that looked almost fragile. Their skin was translucent like polished glass, and she could see the slow pulse of their circulation beneath it. Their large dark eyes took up much of their faces and reflected intelligence and sadness. Welcome aboard, human friends, Veltar said through his suit's translator. His voice was musical and soft even through the electronic filters. I apologize for meeting you under such terrible circumstances. We had hoped first contact between our species would be more pleasant. Dr. Foster stepped forward and activated her recording equipment. This conversation would be studied by linguists and historians for centuries to come. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as possible. Our medical team is ready to help however we can. The alien captain gestured for them too. Follow him through corridors that curved and flowed like the inside of a living creature. Rodriguez noticed that gravity was lighter here, and the air that leaked through their environmental seals smelled sweet and strange. They passed several aliens lying on floating stretchers, and she could see the dark spots covering their translucent skin. The plague began on Korath Prime 3 months ago, Veltar explained as they walked. Our archaeological team was exploring ruins left by the destroyer race. They found a sealed chamber that contained biological weapons designed to eliminate any advanced species. The weapons had been dormant for millions of years. They entered a large medical bay where Dr. Kasani was working at stations that looked more like crystal sculptures than computers. The alien scientist was clearly very ill, with the same dark spots covering much of her visible skin. Her large eyes were dim, and she moved slowly, as if every action required great effort. Dr. Kesani is our leading expert on biological warfare, Veltar said. She has studied the plague since it first appeared, but our medical technology is useless against it. The weapon specifically targets advanced immune systems and turns them against their hosts. Sam Turner moved closer to examine the medical data that floated in 3-dimensional displays above the alien workstations. The technical readouts were translated into human terms, showing a pathogen unlike anything in Earth's databases. The plague attacked immune cells and reprogrammed them to destroy healthy tissue instead of protecting it. Your message said that primitive immune systems might resist this weapon, Turner said, while studying the data. What makes you think humans would be immune to something that affects all other species in the galaxy? Kasani activated a display showing Earth's location relative to other inhabited worlds. The blue dot representing humanity's home was marked with symbols that clearly indicated extreme danger. Your world is classified as a Class 12 death world in our databases. Most galactic civilizations consider such planets completely uninhabitable. Rodriguez felt a mix of pride and concern at that classification. Earth had always seemed normal to humans, but apparently their home world was considered one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. The aliens explained that most species had evolved unstable worlds with consistent climates and few natural threats. Death worlds produce beings adapted to constant survival challenges, Veltar continued. Your immune systems have evolved to handle threats that would destroy other species instantly. The destroyer weapons were designed to kill advanced civilizations, but they might not work against Deathworld immune systems. Dr. Foster was recording everything while asking questions about galactic civilization and the history of the destroyer race. The aliens explained that the destroyers had vanished long before current species achieved spaceflight. They had left weapons and ruins throughout the galaxy designed to eliminate any species that might become too powerful. We need to test human blood samples against the plague, Kesani said weakly. If your immune systems can resist it, then you might be able to help us develop a cure. Without treatment, my people will be extinct within days. Turner began setting up his portable medical equipment while the aliens prepared samples of the plague for testing. The procedures had to be done carefully with multiple containment protocols to prevent accidental infection. Both species were taking enormous risks by working together, but the alternative was watching an entire civilization die. Tony Baker was the first human to volunteer for blood testing. The young engineer had joined the Phoenix crew specifically to be part of humanity's first contact mission. He rolled up his sleeve and allowed Turner to draw samples, while alien scientists watched through their protective equipment. The testing took place in a sealed laboratory with the plague samples kept in multiple containment fields. Turner placed drops of Baker's blood into contact with the pathogen while both human and alien scientists monitored the results. Everyone held their breath as the computers analyzed what happened when Deathworld immunity met destroyer technology. The results appeared on both human and alien displays simultaneously. Baker's blood cells had encountered the plague and remained completely unaffected. The pathogen that had killed billions of aliens across 17 star systems had no impact on human immune responses. The Deathworld evolution that had seemed like a curse was actually humanity's greatest gift. Impossible, Kesani whispered as she stared at the results. Your immune systems are not just resistant to the plague, they are completely immune to it. The weapon cannot even recognize human biology as a target. Captain Veltar sank into a floating chair as relief washed over his dying features. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to hope that his species might survive. The humans from the legendary Deathworld had arrived just in time to save them from extinction. Rodriguez looked at her crew and realized that everything had just changed. Humanity was no longer an isolated species discovering they were not alone. They had become the saviors of galactic civilization, and the galaxy was about to learn what Deathworld evolution really meant. News of the immune humans spread through the galaxy faster than the plague itself. Within days of the first successful blood tests, every major civilization knew about the Deathworld species that could resist the ancient bioweapon. Emergency sessions were called in the Galactic Council chambers while panicked governments begged for human assistance. Ambassador Threndock arrived at the human fleet coordinates in a massive diplomatic vessel that dwarfed even the largest Earth ships. The council representative was a crystalline being from the Silicon Reach, whose body reflected light in rainbow patterns. His species had never experienced biological disease, but they understood the threat facing organic civilizations. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request assistance from the human species, Threnduk announced during the official first contact ceremony. 17 star systems are now infected with the destroyer plague, and conventional quarantine measures have failed completely. Your immunity may be the only thing that can stop galactic extinction. Captain Rodriguez had been promoted to admiral overnight as Earth's government realized the scope of the crisis. She now commanded a growing fleet of human vessels that had rushed from Earth, carrying medical supplies and personnel. The Phoenix had become the flagship of humanity's first interstellar relief mission. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked around the clock in the expanded medical facilities studying plague samples with alien scientists. The pathogen was incredibly sophisticated and clearly designed by beings who understood biological warfare better than any current species. It spread through multiple vectors and adapted to different alien biologies while maintaining its lethal effects. The plague targets specific immune responses that all advanced species share, Walsh explained to the mixed human and alien research team. It recognizes the genetic markers of technological civilization and turns sophisticated immune systems against themselves. Human immunity works because we evolved through constant biological warfare on Earth. The scope of the disaster became clear as reports arrived from infected systems. The industrial world of Korath Prime was completely dead with its 12 billion inhabitants killed within weeks. The pleasure world of Azure Falls had fallen silent after the plague spread through its tourist populations. Ancient civilizations with millions of years of history were facing extinction. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Wright led the first human medical intervention team to the dying world of Corvin Prime. His team included combat medics and biologists, trained for hostile environment operations. They wore standard Earth environmental suits rated for chemical and biological warfare, but the aliens insisted on adding multiple layers of additional protection. The shuttle descent to Corvin Prime was unlike anything human pilots had experienced. The world had heavy gravity, a thick toxic atmosphere, and radiation levels that would kill most galactic species within hours. The aliens aboard the shuttle were unconscious in protective pods, while the humans sat normally in their seats, watching the hostile world grow larger below them. Atmosphere is 90% methane with sulfuric acid rain, reported the pilot as they approached the main city. Gravity is 2.7 times Earth normal and background radiation is off the charts. The locals are describing this as a hell world, but it reminds me of some places on Earth. Wright looked out at the landscape of twisted metal towers and burning chemical seas. The world had been turned into an industrial nightmare by its inhabitants, who had adapted to live in conditions that would instantly kill most galactic citizens. Even before the plague arrived, Corvin Prime had been considered barely habitable by council standards. The human team worked in the plague treatment centers, while their alien escorts remained sealed in their protective equipment. The locals were silicon-based life forms who looked like living metal sculptures, but they were dying just as quickly as carbon-based species. The plague was designed to kill any complex immune system, regardless of its biochemical foundation. Wright watched in amazement as his team operated medical equipment in conditions that had terrified their alien advisors. The humans worked in crushing gravity, wearing basic protective gear while handling toxins that would kill other species through skin contact. Earth's evolution had prepared them for challenges that broke every other civilization. Command this. Is Wright reporting from Corvin Prime? He transmitted back to the fleet. Human medical teams are fully operational in local conditions. We're beginning treatment procedures now. The aliens were right about us being adapted for this kind of work. Meanwhile, Admiral Rodriguez received disturbing intelligence reports from human reconnaissance teams scattered across the infected sectors. Several aggressive species were using the plague as a weapon by deliberately spreading it to enemy territories. The Saurian Empire had blockaded infected systems to prevent evacuation, while the Hive Collective was harvesting abandoned technology from dead worlds. The galactic community was fracturing as civilizations focused on protecting themselves rather than fighting the plague. Ancient alliances crumbled as species quarantined their neighbors and refused to share resources. Only the humans seemed willing to travel between infected systems, providing medical assistance wherever it was needed. "We're not just fighting a plague anymore," Rodriguez told her senior staff during a strategy meeting. "We're watching galactic civilization collapse from fear and selfishness. Some species are actually profiting from this disaster while others die." Dr. Amy Foster had been studying intercepted communications between various alien governments, and her reports painted a disturbing picture. Several species viewed the plague as an opportunity to eliminate competitors and expand their territories. They saw the crisis as natural selection, removing the weak while leaving the strong to inherit the galaxy. The Saurian Empire was the most aggressive in exploiting the situation. Their reptilian civilization had evolved on high-gravity worlds and considered themselves superior to other species. They began attacking human medical convoys and claiming infected systems for themselves. Admiral Rodriguez realized that humanity was about to face its first interstellar war. "The Saurians are demanding that we share our immunity research with them exclusively," reported the communications officer. "They're threatening to attack any human vessel that provides aid to their enemies. They want to control the cure and use it as a weapon." Rodriguez studied the tactical displays showing Saurian fleet movements around infected systems. Their ships were heavily armed and designed for conquest rather than exploration. The aliens had clearly decided that the plague crisis was an opportunity to establish dominance over the galaxy through military force. The first combat encounter happened near the medical station orbiting Epsilon Ceti. 3 Saurian warships attacked a human convoy carrying plague treatment supplies to refugee camps on the planet's surface. The alien commanders expected easy prey, but they had never faced Deathworld military doctrine. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos commanded the security detail aboard the medical transport vessel. Her team had trained for hostile boarding actions, but they had never fought aliens before. When the Saurian assault shuttles attached to their hull, she prepared her soldiers for combat against an unknown enemy. The Saurians who broke through the airlock were 7 feet tall, with armored scales and claws designed for tearing flesh. They moved in coordinated packs and carried energy weapons that could slice through most materials. Their tactics were based on overwhelming force and intimidation to break enemy morale quickly. Santos and her team fought with Earth-standard equipment and techniques that seemed primitive compared to alien technology. They used kinetic weapons, explosive devices, and close-quarters combat training developed through thousands of years of human warfare. The aliens discovered that Deathworld military evolution was just as deadly as immune system adaptation. Battle lasted only 15 minutes, but it changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans. The Saurian assault force was completely destroyed, while the human defenders suffered only minor casualties. Reports of the engagement spread through military networks as alien commanders tried to understand how primitive humans had defeated advanced warriors. "The humans fight like they have nothing to lose," reported the surviving Saurian fleet commander. "They use tactics that make no sense and weapons that should be obsolete. They absorb damage that would cripple us and keep fighting. These are not the primitive beings we expected." Admiral Rodriguez realized that humanity's role in the galactic crisis was expanding beyond medical assistance. They were becoming the protectors of vulnerable species and the enemy of those who would exploit the plague for conquest. The galaxy was learning that Deathworld evolution produced more than just immunity to disease. The cure development was progressing rapidly thanks to human research teams working in conditions that other species could not survive. Dr. Walsh had synthesized compounds that could boost alien immune systems to resist the plague, but the production process required environments with extreme gravity and toxic atmospheres. Only humans can manufacture this cure in the quantities needed, Walsh reported to the Fleet Command. The synthesis requires conditions that would kill other species instantly. The attack on the medical station at Epsilon Ceti changed everything about humanity's role in the galactic crisis. What had begun as a rescue mission became a war for the survival of civilization itself. Saurian raiders continued attacking human medical convoys while the Hive Collective began harvesting plague samples to use as biological weapons against their enemies. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos stood in the debris-filled corridor of the medical station, watching her team treat wounded alien civilians. The Saurian assault had been intended to capture human immune research, but instead it had revealed something the galaxy was not prepared for. Humans were not just immune to the deadliest plague in galactic history. They were also the most effective warriors anyone had ever encountered. The battle had lasted 6 hours with waves of Saurian troops attempting to overwhelm the small human security force. Santos and her 15 soldiers had faced over 200 elite alien warriors using advanced technology and coordinated tactics. The engagement should have been a massacre, but instead it became a demonstration of Deathworld military evolution. Report, Sergeant. Admiral Rodriguez requested over the communication link. Her voice carried the tension of someone coordinating relief efforts across 17 star systems while fighting a war against species that wanted to weaponize the plague. Station secured, Admiral, Santos replied while watching medic Sam Turner work on a wounded Zephyrian doctor. Enemy casualties are complete. We lost Jenkins and Murphy, but the medical facilities are intact. The alien civilians are asking how 15 humans defeated an entire Saurian assault force. The answer was something the galaxy was struggling to understand. Human soldiers fought with a combination of tactical flexibility, psychological warfare, and physical resilience that no other species could match. They adapted to changing conditions instantly and used weapons that seemed primitive but proved devastatingly effective in actual combat. Dr. Rachel Moore continued her research in the heavily damaged laboratory while explosions echoed through the station. The biochemist had been working on plague treatment synthesis when the attack began, but she refused to abandon her work even during combat. Her dedication to saving lives regardless of personal danger was becoming typical of human behavior. The cure production is more complex than we originally thought, Moore reported to the research team. The pathogen adapts to each species differently, so we need customized treatments for every alien biology. The synthesis process requires environmental conditions that only humans can tolerate. The manufacturing facilities had to be built in locations with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and radiation levels that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Only worlds classified as death worlds provided the extreme conditions needed for cure synthesis. Humanity was not just immune to the plague. They were the only species capable of mass producing the medicine that could save everyone else. Admiral Frank Collins arrived from Earth with the largest human fleet ever assembled. 50 warships and 100 support vessels carried medical teams, manufacturing equipment, and military forces to establish permanent human presence in the infected sectors. The fleet represented humanity's total commitment to ending the galactic crisis. Admiral Rodriguez, you are hereby promoted to Supreme Commander of Joint Human Operations, Collins announced during the command transfer ceremony. Earth government has decided that this crisis requires unified leadership. You now have authority over all human military and medical assets in this sector. Rodriguez accepted the promotion, knowing that it came with enormous responsibility. Humanity was taking charge of galactic plague response while simultaneously fighting a war against species that wanted to exploit the crisis. Human forces were spread across dozens of star systems, providing medical aid while defending against constant attacks. The Saurian Empire had declared humans to be a threat to galactic stability and was mobilizing its full military might to eliminate them. Saurian commanders could not accept that primitive Deathworld beings had defeated their elite troops. They convinced themselves that humans must be using hidden technology or receiving assistance from advanced species. Intelligence reports indicate the Saurians are massing a fleet of over 300 warships, reported the tactical officer. They're planning a coordinated assault on our main medical facilities. They believe that eliminating human research teams will force us to share immunity data exclusively with them. Rodriguez studied the tactical displays showing enemy fleet movements across the infected sectors. The Saurians were clearly planning to use overwhelming force to crush human operations and claim control of plague treatment for themselves. They had no intention of sharing the cure with species they considered inferior. The battle for Corvin Prime became the turning point in the conflict between human medical missions and alien military aggression. The industrial world had become a major treatment center where human teams worked in conditions that other species found uninhabitable. Saurian forces attacked the planet expecting to capture valuable research data and eliminate human influence. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Wright commanded the ground defenses with a mixed force of human marines and local militia. The planet's inhabitants were silicon-based life forms who had been dying from the plague until human treatments began saving their population. They fought alongside their human rescuers with desperate determination. Enemy landing craft detected across all continents. Wright reported to Fleet Command. Saurian ground forces are targeting medical facilities and cure manufacturing plants. Local defenders are mobilizing, but they're still weak from plague effects. We need air support immediately. The battle for Corvin Prime showcased human military adaptability in alien environments. Marine units operated in gravity that would crush most species while breathing atmosphere that was toxic to nearly everyone else. They used Earth-standard equipment modified for local conditions and tactics. Developed through centuries of planetary warfare, Saurian troops had expected to face weak medical personnel protected by minimal security forces. Instead, they encountered professional soldiers who had trained for combat on worlds that most species considered uninhabitable. Human tactics emphasized mobility, improvisation, and the ability to operate independently in hostile conditions. The humans are fighting in environmental conditions that should kill them, reported a surviving Saurian field commander. They move freely in crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere, while our troops require heavy protection suits. They use primitive kinetic weapons, but their accuracy and coordination are beyond anything we anticipated. The space battle above Corvin Prime became the largest engagement of the war, as Admiral Rodriguez led the human fleet against overwhelming Saurian numbers. Human warships were smaller and less advanced than their enemies, but they were crewed by beings who had evolved to handle extreme stress and unexpected challenges. Captain Lisa Rodriguez had transferred her flag to the battleship Terra Nova for the engagement. The massive vessel represented Earth's most advanced military technology, but it was still outnumbered 5-1 by the attacking Saurian fleet. Human victory would depend on superior tactics and the psychological warfare that Deathworld evolution had perfected. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez," she broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy believes superior numbers guarantee victory, but they have never faced Deathworld determination. Show them what happens when they threaten innocent civilians under our protection." The battle lasted 8 hours with human ships using hit-and-run tactics that confused Saurian commanders. Earth doctrine emphasized speed, surprise, and the ability to absorb damage while continuing to fight. Human crews operated their vessels past safe limits while conducting maneuvers that would break the crews of other species. Dr. Rachel Moore, continued working in her laboratory throughout the orbital bombardment as the station shook from nearby explosions. Her research team included aliens from 6 different species who had volunteered to help despite the danger. The cure synthesis could not stop even during combat because too many lives depended on continuous production. "We're ready to begin mass production of the cure," Moore announced over the communication network. "Treatment facilities are operational on 12 worlds, and we can begin shipping medicine to infected systems immediately. The plague can be stopped, but only if we can protect the manufacturing sites." The victory at Corvin Prime broke the Saurian offensive and demonstrated human military capabilities to the entire galaxy. News of the battle spread through communication networks as species realized that the primitive Deathworld beings were not just immune to the plague. They were also the most effective military force in galactic history. "The humans have changed the balance of power permanently," Ambassador Threnduk reported to the Galactic Council. "They fight wars while healing the sick and operate in conditions that kill other species. They are not just our saviors from the plague. They are the new guardians of galactic civilization." The Hive Collective attempted one final assault on human medical operations, but their defeat was even more decisive than the Saurian failure. Human forces had learned to coordinate military operations with medical missions, creating a combined approach that no enemy could counter. 6 months after first contact with the dying Zephyrians, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. The ancient plague that had threatened to destroy all civilization was contained and being systematically eliminated by human medical teams. Production facilities on 30 Deathworlds manufactured cure compounds in quantities that would have been impossible for any other species to achieve. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the last infected system receive its final shipment of plague treatment. The red warning markers that had once covered 17 star systems were now changing to green as world after world reported successful elimination of the bioweapon. Billions of lives had been saved by human immunity and determination. Final medical report from the Altair System Admiral, reported the communications officer. All plague traces eliminated and local populations returning to normal health levels. That completes treatment for every infected world in our operational area. Rodriguez nodded as she watched the tactical display update with the last green marker. The galaxy was finally free of the destroyer plague, but the changes that had occurred during the crisis were permanent. Humanity had evolved from an unknown species to the most important civilization in galactic history. The Galactic Council had formally recognized Earth as a protectorate world with special status reserved for species too dangerous to threaten, but too valuable to ignore. Human medical stations operated throughout the galaxy, providing treatment for diseases that other species could not handle. The irony was not lost on anyone that the primitives had become the protectors. Dr. Amy Foster walked through the corridors of the new Interspecies Medical Institute orbiting Earth, where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that would have been impossible before the plague crisis. The cultural exchange was working in both directions as humans gained access to advanced alien technology while sharing their unique evolutionary advantages. "The research applications are incredible," Foster explained to visiting dignitaries. From the Council, human immune systems can be studied to help other species develop resistance to biological warfare. Meanwhile, alien technology is advancing human medicine by thousands of years. The Institute had become a symbol of the new galactic order, where Deathworld adaptations were recognized as valuable rather than primitive. Human researchers worked in environmental conditions that allowed them to study phenomena that other species could only observe from safe distances. They were advancing scientific knowledge by going places that killed everyone else. Jake Morrison had been promoted to Director of Earth's Deep Space Communications after his role in detecting the original alien distress signal. His facility now handled diplomatic communications with dozens of species, while monitoring for threats that might require human intervention. The galaxy had learned to call Earth when facing challenges that seemed impossible. "We're receiving another priority signal from the Galactic Rim," Morrison reported during the daily briefing. "The Crystalline Confederation is requesting human assistance with environmental contamination that's making their worlds uninhabitable. They need teams that can operate in conditions that would kill their entire species." These requests had become routine as word spread about human capabilities in extreme environments. Species that had never considered asking for help were now sending desperate pleas to Earth when facing challenges beyond their evolutionary limits. Humanity had become the galaxy's emergency response service. Captain Veltar had recovered completely from the plague and now served as Earth's primary liaison with the Zephyrian government. His species had become humanity's strongest supporters in the Galactic Council after experiencing human dedication to saving lives regardless of personal cost. The peaceful aliens had witnessed something they had never seen before in galactic politics. "Your species has redefined what it means to be civilized," Veltar told Rodriguez during one of their regular diplomatic meetings. "We always believed that advancement meant leaving behind the struggles of primitive evolution. You have shown us that those struggles created capabilities that no peaceful development could achieve." The military situation had stabilized after the decisive defeats of the Saurian Empire and Hive Collective. Both aggressive species had attempted to exploit the plague crisis for territorial expansion, but they had learned that attacking human operations carried consequences they were not prepared for. The galaxy now understood that Earth's military capabilities matched their medical expertise. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos commanded the security force at the primary manufacturing facility on Titan, where cure production continued despite the end of the active crisis. Human military doctrine had evolved to integrate protection of medical operations with combat effectiveness. They had become warriors who fought to heal rather than to conquer. Security teams report all facilities operating at full capacity. Santos updated the command staff. Local defense forces from 12 species are training with our units to learn Deathworld combat techniques. They want to understand how we fight in conditions that would disable their equipment. The training programs had become another aspect of human influence in galactic affairs. Species that had never needed to fight for survival were learning from beings who had evolved through constant struggle. Human military advisors were teaching alien forces how to operate in hostile environments and adapt unexpected challenges. Rachel Moore had been awarded the highest scientific honors from 6 different civilizations for her work developing plague treatments. Her research had expanded beyond the original crisis to create medicines for diseases that had plagued various species for millennia. Human biochemistry was proving to be the key to solving medical problems throughout the galaxy. "We're ready to begin the next phase of research," Moore announced to the gathered scientists. The plague was just the beginning. Human immune systems can be adapted to help other species develop resistance to environmental toxins, radiation, poisoning, and genetic disorders that we consider minor inconveniences. The scope of human medical assistance was expanding as species realized that Deathworld evolution had prepared humans to survive challenges that would eliminate other civilizations. Humans could work in radioactive zones, toxic atmospheres, and gravitational extremes while developing treatments for conditions that alien medicine could not address. Admiral Frank Collins had established the new Earth Defense Force headquarters on Luna, where human military operations were coordinated across multiple sectors. The organization had evolved from a planetary defense service to an interstellar peacekeeping force that protected vulnerable species from aggressive neighbors. Intelligence reports indicate unusual activity in the galactic core region, Collins briefed the senior staff. Long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures that matched descriptions of ancient machine intelligences from the destroyer archives. We may be facing a new crisis that requires human intervention. The reports were fragmentary but disturbing. Deep space monitoring stations had detected artificial signals from the galactic center where no known civilizations existed. The patterns suggested technology far beyond current galactic capabilities, and the energy signatures matched warnings found in destroyer ruins about their greatest enemies. Threndok arrived at Earth's orbital facilities with a formal request that everyone had been expecting. His crystalline features reflected the stress of someone delivering news that no one wanted to hear. The Galactic Council had detected something in the galaxy's core that threatened all organic life. We are facing a machine intelligence that has been dormant for millions of years, Threndok explained to the emergency session of human leadership. The entity appears to be immune to all conventional weapons and resistant to most forms of attack. Our military analysts believe it may only be vulnerable to the chaos and unpredictability that define human nature. The briefing materials described an artificial intelligence that had been the ultimate enemy of the destroyer race. The machines had been built to eliminate all organic life, but they had been defeated and shut down by weapons that used randomness and biological chaos as their primary mechanism. Only Deathworld evolution could produce the unpredictability needed to fight such enemies. The entity has already eliminated 3 automated research stations that approached the galactic core. Threndok continued. Its defensive systems adapt instantly to any predictable attack pattern. We need forces that can operate without logical patterns or consistent tactical doctrine. Admiral Rodriguez studied the tactical data, knowing that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Fighting aliens who used conventional military strategy was one thing, but battling machine intelligence that could predict and counter logical tactics required something entirely different. It required the adaptive chaos that only Deathworld evolution could produce. Jake Morrison received the priority alert at his communications center as detection equipment throughout the galaxy reported the same disturbing development. The machine intelligence was no longer dormant, and it was beginning to move toward inhabited systems. Ancient warnings in destroyer archives described an enemy that could eliminate organic life throughout the galaxy.